So there I was. It was after dark. I was in Balboa Park. It was my first night living on the streets. All I had on me was a backpack full of personal possessions and a sleeping bag. And I was face to face with a guy who was obviously on drugs. And for one of the few times I can remember, I was legitimately scared for my life. So how did I get here? When 2 months ago, I was living in a high-rise luxury condo downtown. I had a job that paid well, and I felt like I was on my life's path. Let's rewind. To 2 months ago, where I was standing right here, giving my icebreaker. Most of you in the audience are gonna have to give a second icebreaker as well. And I was thinking about doing the exact same one, but I decided to give the people what they wanted. So after my last speech, almost all the feedback I got was more interest in what it was like to be homeless than my whole life story that I tried to cram into about 5 minutes of talk time. So tonight, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I chose to be homeless, how I went about that, and then what lessons I learned from this crazy experience. So about 4 years ago, I was a much different person than you see up here today. I was military, I was an officer, I was a pilot, I was very left-brained, I was not into entrepreneurship, I was not into personal development, but I ended up going through like one of the worst years of my life. I ended up getting a DUI, which as an officer or pilot in the military, that does not serve well. I went on deployment to a place that was not fun, seemed like a waste of time and energy, and my mom actually passed away that same year, so needless to say, I was definitely at the lowest point. And so I started realizing for the first time in my life that I didn't have it all figured out. And my mind opened to personal development. And I read a book called Think and Grow Rich. And in reading that book, I discovered a new paradigm that to me was just the most amazing thing I'd ever discovered. But I also came to the very profound realization that I had this debilitating fear of poverty, which is something that's outlined in the book. And in this realization, I took on a new life's purpose, which was to learn all this stuff in this book and help other people realize that it really is mindset that dictates your experience in life. But I also knew I had to face this fear before I felt comfortable teaching this stuff, because I wanted to practice what I preached. So I came up with a plan to work on all these principles and then liquidate all of my assets, give it all away to charity, and live homeless for 30 days to just really see what it felt like to truly face poverty. And that's exactly what I did. So over the next 2 years, I relentlessly studied this stuff. Through books, workshops, mentors, everything, and worked out pretty well. I ended up living in a luxury high-rise condo, had a couple of exotic cars in my garage. I was making really good money, and I was not working that much. And you'd think that's pretty much the life that you want. But I still had this thing that I had to do. So in the summer of 2015, started pulling the trigger. Started liquidating all my assets, selling off my real estate. I had rental property at this point. Selling my cars, liquidating my IRA. I literally got rid of every physical possession I had except for that backpack that I showed up in California with. And I gave it all away. Gave everything away to mostly charity. Some people who actually needed, situation, financial stuff. And I showed up here. Well, I took my last probably 10 grand, and I started a crossroad road trip. Riding train, taking bus, visiting different places. Ended up in San Diego about 2 weeks later. And with the last couple $100, I checked out of my hotel and I showed up in Balboa Park. And a few days prior to this, I made the mistake of telling this girl my idea. And she very strongly voiced her concern with my thing. She said basically she'd been homeless at one point and she was almost raped and murdered, and that would probably happen to me as well. And because I went into this scenario without much planning to really test the no resources aspect of it, I got pretty scared. And then to compound that effect, that guy showing up, asking me all kinds of probing questions after dark, at night, in Balboa Park, I was very scared. But I noticed a group of people in the shadows prior to running into this guy, and I thought I'd approach him the next day to find out. I figured they were homeless, and they were. So at that point, my fear of that guy overrode my fear of approaching them. So I went in, and I was actually welcomed into some of the warmest, kindest homeless people I'd ever encountered in my entire life. And from that moment on, the experience was a positive experience. And in closing, I just want to say, I learned a lot through doing this process, but probably one of the most golden nuggets that I took away from it is that fear is a red flag for an area of your life that you could use some development, some growth. And in identifying this huge fear that I had of poverty and going to face it, my life changed exponentially. But even in small areas, when we get uncomfortable or anxious in our day-to-day lives, it's a reflection of a subconscious program that's running in our mind that doesn't have to be there. So it might serve you to get out and face it a little bit. So, thanks for your time.